Hello, guys. Welcome to the Bru-Podcast, episode 9. And I am here with my guest, Mr. Dabalsa.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be with you.
Yes. So, how are you doing, Mr. Dabalsa? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Just finished teaching. Kids just went home, made a few copies, and here I am with you now. Doing well. Can't complain.
That's great. That's fantastic. So, um, so the first question is, why did you decide to become an English teacher?
Well, I originally studied theater many years ago when I was a young man because I absolutely love plays and playwriting, and I love the magic of theater. It really is magical when, especially when you're part of making a play and putting a play up on a stage. It's just something I've always been drawn to. But unfortunately, I live in a city with almost no theater whatsoever. At least no native theater. Any good theater we see in this city comes from other cities. They're visiting from New York or Chicago or London. So there weren't many opportunities in that field for me. I then entered teaching as a drama teacher because that was my background, theater. But personally, or in my own life, I've always had a love for literature and reading and writing. That stuff has always come easily to me in the same way that for some human beings, math or science comes easily to them. I struggle with that part of the world, but anything word related has always come really easily to me. And I feel like I have a profound love for beautiful stories and for grammar and for writing. And so I slowly transitioned from teaching drama into teaching English because there was a little more certainty in that career field. There aren't
Mhm.
that many drama teachers left in the country in high schools,
Yeah.
but there will always be a need for grammar teachers and literature teachers and English teachers. And I thought there was, well, there's more certainty in that. And because I love it and it comes easily to me, I transitioned into that. And now I can't imagine my life without it. I just
Yeah.
absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. You're a great teacher. And you
Why,
have,
thank you.
yeah, you have great vocabulary too. And you speak so clearly. I never heard somebody speak English so clearly like you.
Well, English is my second language. My first language was Spanish, as it is for many students in this school in this city.
Mhm.
But they say that those who learn English as a second language often learn it better. They learn the grammar a little better because when it just happens naturally in the home, you don't pay as much attention to the rules.
Yeah.
But when you have to learn it, like one would learn math, a formula in science, for example, it kind of sticks a little more than if you just learned it naturally. So, yes, students who learn English as a second language tend to speak a little better grammatical um, focus. And I think that's what happened with me. I think because I learned it as a second language and because I have a love of words,
Mhm.
I try to be conscious of every word that comes out of my mouth when I do speak it. Plus, I also do voiceover work, as I'm sure you've heard, because the kids, I'll talk about it. So speaking is a way that I earn a second living. So
Yeah.
it's important that I speak well every time I open my mouth. Not only because I teach students and I'm trying to set the example. This is the way you're supposed to speak to the world when you're at a job interview or when you have a job, when you have a spouse. This is the way one communicates properly. But because I also earn a living through speaking, a second living. So there you go. So words and speaking hugely important to my life.
Yeah. I mean, you're a great speaker. And I mean, I think you're probably I'll be honest, out of all the English teachers in our school, I think you're probably the one with like the most like the deepest knowledge, I feel. The most love, probably.
Well, God, I hope that comes across. So it means a lot to me that you're saying that. You don't talk very much in school. You're a really quiet young man,
Yeah.
and that's just your personality, and that's perfectly fine. So it's nice to hear this because you never know. A teacher never knows how a quiet student is absorbing the teaching style of that teacher. We don't know. We know how the loud kids, whether they like you or don't like you, or if they're getting what. But the really quiet ones like you, we don't. We never know. We never know. Is what I'm saying making sense to this child? Is he taking it in? Is he getting my stupid little dad jokes that I make all the time? Does he think they're silly? Does he think they're informative? So I'm glad to hear that that I'm coming across as someone who knows his stuff, for lack of
Yeah.
a better word. So that's good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on from that, if you can have dinner with three people that are not related with you,
Mm,
dead or alive, who would they
dead
be?
or alive, who would they be? Well, obviously, my number one answer would be Shakespeare.
Of course.
I just find that man fascinating. I think there are a few people on this earth who have changed the planet like he has. A second person I would love to have dinner with is probably Maya Angelou. I love that woman. I don't know if you know who she is. She passed away about 8 years ago, 9 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, she was a writer and a poet and a public speaker. And speaking of great voices, oh my God, that woman had the most fascinating voice, and everything that came out of her mouth sounded like wisdom. She was just a really wise woman. She has some of the best quotes. I have them all over my home in books and in notes that I've taken. She was just a fascinating human being who had a really tough childhood, but instead of being bitter about it, she used that knowledge and that struggle to become one of the most well-rounded educators in history. So, Shakespeare, Maya Angelou. If I had a third person to choose, I have to think about this one. Maybe another great playwright whose work I've enjoyed and I've read and I've performed, a man named Tennessee Williams, who is considered probably the most successful American playwright of the 20th century. I did a lot of his plays in college. I read all of his plays, and I admire his writing. Even though he was male, he wrote some of the best female characters in history. And the idea of having dinner with Shakespeare, Tennessee Williams, and Maya Angelou, I wouldn't speak much. I would just sit there and listen to these three magnificent minds
Yeah.
discuss the world at large.
Yeah.
Those are the three that come to mind. I'm sure when I finish this podcast, I'll come up with three others. But
Yeah.
those three, I would love that dinner.
Yeah. I wonder what Shakespeare would think when he sees like the world like how it is right now. I mean,
Can you imagine? Yeah, or Einstein, or just these great people who changed the world.
yeah.
I don't know. I think Shakespeare would be impressed because he lived through and for the theater. And today we have these magnificent structures, right? Like the Arch Center um and all these wonderful theaters in New York and London and all over the world, and they have electricity and they have so I think because he was one of the world's most creative human beings to ever have walked the planet, I think he would be thrilled that he literally there's nothing he could write that they couldn't put on a stage today. In the same way that there's nothing that a writer who writes movies can write that they can't create because of computer graphics, CGI. There is
Yeah.
literally nothing that a writer writes today that cannot be created by a computer. Well, I think Shakespeare would feel the same way. Like there's nothing I could put on a page that these massive theaters in New York and London couldn't produce. And
Yeah.
how exciting is that for a writer that he's literally limitless? I mean, imagine having that amount of creativity and knowing you are limitless. You can create beings and you could create light shows and you can create ghosts and spirits and they could literally be brought to life on the stage in these magnificent spaces that we have now. So I don't think he would be um
Like
in any
disappointed.
way. No, I think he would be excited is the word. He would
Yeah.
be like just excited to continue writing, right? If I could bring him back. Remember, he
Mhm.
died a relatively young man. He died at 52.
Mm,
That's when a writer is really getting good. I mean, if he were
yeah.
alive today, he would be writing more plays and for these magnificent structures. And well, I think he'd be just like jumping with glee over everything he could write, you know?
Yeah. Because when Shakespeare was alive, he was like more limited with like what he can well, not what he can write, but
Well,
how
yeah.
he can produce the writing.
Well, remember, I mean, as I taught you in class, all the shows were during the day because they had no
Yeah.
electricity, and all the actors were males. So yeah, he was limited quite a bit. His budget was also a problem. I mean, he made money. He was a wealthy man by the end of his career, but he didn't have like an excessive amount of money where and today, some productions cost 80, 70, 80, 90 million dollars to put up. I mean, the
Mm,
production of Lion King, the original Lion King, which opened about 25 years ago, way before you were born,
yeah,
it cost $90 million to put that play up on Broadway.
a lot
And
of
that's
money.
in 1999 money. Imagine today. That's probably the equivalent to about $120 million today. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a ridiculous amount of money. But if you see that show, you can understand. That show is magnificent. The
yeah,
costumes, the music. Yeah, you know.
yeah, 100%. Um, so I think like many of your students know that you were like a bodybuilder.
I used to be when I was a young man. Yeah, I got into I was heavy. I was a heavy child. I was overweight when I was in my teens,
Hmm.
14, 15, 16. And then when I turned 18, I decided to take my health seriously and I lost a bunch of weight. And I went to the other extreme. I got really, really thin.
Mm,
But then I started working out with weights, and then I realized, oh, I have, because not everybody has the same body type. Some body types can work out 5 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they won't gain much bulk.
yeah, true.
I can gain bulk. I didn't know that until I started lifting weights, and then I kind of liked it.
Yeah,
And I started when I started taking it seriously when I was like 21. By the time I was 30, I was pretty big. I mean, I never competed. I was never that type. But yeah, for about 15 years of my life, I took it really seriously, and I was quite bulky. I was never cut or ripped. Again, my body doesn't do that. But yeah, I was pretty big. And then, when I got into my mid 40s, the body changed. The body changes. Your body changes every few years.
yeah,
And I couldn't get as big as I used to be. I also couldn't lose weight when I wanted to. Because when I was younger, I could lose 3 pounds in a week if I wanted to. And I can also gain 3 pounds in a week if I wanted to. I had complete control of my body. I could do with it whatever I wanted.
yeah,
But when you cross like 42, 43, the body kind of sort of changes in a way that doesn't let you have as much control. So I stopped. I slowed down and then I completely stopped.
no, okay.
So yeah, but now I'm 51, so
Mhm.
my body wouldn't respond nearly as well. Although, ironically enough, this is when I should be working out because this is when the health problems begin, when you cross 50.
Yeah, yeah, but
But
you seem like a
yes,
pretty healthy guy.
well, I don't know if I'm healthy. I'm chubby, but have a lot of energy, as you know, from my classes. I'm always up and around. I'm not, I'm always walking around and I'm always talking and at the top of my lungs. And I do have a lot of energy.
Yep.
So I could eat better, but all of us could eat better, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, so after you retire, after you
Yeah.
retire from your job, are you gonna become like a writer?
Well, I do write. It's one of my hobbies. Aside from my voiceover work, I still playwright. Playwriting is uh one of my most active hobbies. So, but I
Mhm.
do it just for fun. I don't do it to make money because you can't really make money with that. So I still write and I still submit plays to contests and to theaters all over the country. And I had a play produced a few years ago in Dallas, Texas. I couldn't attend because it was in the middle of the school year. I couldn't just take off a week. I don't miss class if I can help it.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I still write and I plan to continue writing. That's the plan. Retirement, well, I plan to travel a lot more because I do love to travel.
Yeah.
I like photography, as you know. I'm the school's unofficial photographer. And I plan to keep doing my voiceover work because I absolutely love that. And that should keep me pretty busy between playwriting and voiceover work and traveling. And that should keep me
Yeah.
pretty busy. Yeah, that's the plan anyway. Let's hope. Let's hope I'm healthy enough to do all that by the time
Yeah.
I'm in my 60s.
Yes. So, you know, um, with people like my age now,
Yeah,
there's something called brain rot. Like
yeah,
sometimes you say, like I'm cooked,
yeah. I hear
or
that. I hear that a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, are you really like familiar with like the brain rot with that slang, with the vocabulary of
Well,
brain rot?
I am, and I'm not. I hear it all the time, obviously, and using what are called context clues, which I'm sure you know. You know, your
Yeah.
teachers teach you if you don't know the meaning of a word, listen to how it's used, and you can probably guess what the word means, even if you don't fully understand it.
Yes.
So even though I may not know what cooked means, I hear the way you all use that word, and obviously I have learned or I figured out that that means you are, screwed because you didn't do well on a test, or
Yeah.
you are tired or exhausted, or you do have what you all call brain rot. So in other words, I know you guys use it to mean many, many things, but on average, you use it to mean that either something went wrong or you didn't do as well as you hoped.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. You guys do keep me pretty well informed as to the latest slang. It does change every year, though. Every
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And since you hear like a lot of brain rot, is obviously your job is to be a teacher, so you hear that a lot.
Oh my
When
God,
you're
all the
when you're
time.
at home, when you're at home, does it ever just come to mind?
Well, it comes to mind, but I don't. I try not to use it because my friends are all in their 50s, like I am, and they don't. They don't. If I were to use that phrase with any of my friends, like "Oh my God, I'm cooked," they will literally have no idea what I mean because they're not around teenagers.
Hmm.
I do have two close friends who are teachers, though. If I use that phrase with them, they will get it. But
Yeah.
I remember I told you as I started at the beginning of this little interview, I try to think really well about every word that comes out of my mouth.
Hmm.
So I when I'm around my friends, I try to speak like my audience. A speaker always has to consider his or her audience. And when my audience is 54, 55-year-old men or women, then I try to speak like 55-year-old or 54-year-old men and women.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be using a term like cooked at home because first of all, it sounds childish when it's coming out of my mouth. Number
Yeah.
one. Number two, most of my friends won't know what that means, but I find it hilarious. I love as a person who loves language.
Hmm.
I love when you guys use slang. I don't like it. I don't like to see it in your writing, obviously, but when you're talking to each other, I find it amusing when you use these slang words, and I love how fast they change. Like this year to be cooked. Next year it'll be something else. I don't know what it is yet. You don't know what it is yet either because it hasn't been introduced into the language yet. But some TV show or some movie is going to introduce some slang word which will be the popular slang word next year, and you guys are going to stop using cooked and you'll start using that word.
Yeah.
And I find it all fascinating. I really do find it fascinating how quickly slang changes and how quickly you guys all learn the new word. I mean, like it takes minutes for that word to go around the school. It's fascinating. It really is.
Yeah. That's true. I ever wonder if like one time, like it's like how the brain rot, like you said, it always like changes and changes. What happens if one time, like that Shakespeare English, like how Shakespeare when he was writing English, it was like a little
Mhm.
bit different. Like the words were
Yeah, well,
different.
completely different. He invented his own version of the English language, right?
Yeah. So what happens if like in the future, our little like we have like a new way to talk and we talk in like that Shakespeare version of English.
Well, here's the thing. Language is constantly evolving, constantly. Okay. So 10 years from now, English will be quite different.
Yeah.
20 years ago, it was quite different to the English we speak today. It's not something that can be changed or controlled. It's just human nature.
Hmm.
Human beings change the way they talk. Communication just changes. So I'm not married to our current version of English. I'm smart enough to know that 15 years from now or 20 years from now, there will be a slightly different version of English. And I'm okay with that. And I will adapt and I will speak that way.
Hmm.
I always give you this example. I don't know if you remember, but the word ain't, when I was growing up, the word ain't was considered slang. It's not something that we ever used in anything formal, like an essay. But believe it or not, you can now find the word ain't in some official dictionaries. It was used enough by enough human beings that the language changed. The language consumed it, and therefore it was put into official dictionaries. You can look them up, and that's just one example of hundreds I can give you. I don't know. Now, some words die out, like the word whom is dying out.
Yeah.
I don't know if the word cooked will be used enough to one day show up in a dictionary with an
Yeah. I don't
actual
think.
definition next to it. Because a lot of slang eventually dies out.
Yeah.
When I was your age, the most popular slang was the word bad. Everything that was bad was good. So that movie was bad. That party was bad. In the same way that you
Mhm.
guys say sick, that
Yeah.
party was sick. Okay. Well, that's died out. We don't use that word, the word bad, to mean good anymore. That only lasted about 7 years, and then it was replaced by something else. And in a couple of years, the word cooked will be replaced by something else. So your children, Mr. Brugnoni, your children will not speak the way you do. And it will be one of your many duties as a parent to adapt and to understand how they speak. And you can't get angry at them because that's the world they live in. I can't get angry at you guys for using the word cooked. I can get angry at you if you put it in an essay because you should be smart enough to know that slang doesn't belong in an essay.
Yeah. True.
Right.
True.
But I can't get angry at you because you turn to the person next to you and said, "Oh my God, I just took a math test and I was cooked."
Hmm.
That's just the way you speak. Right? In the same way
Yeah.
that I would turn to a friend of mine and said, "Oh my God, I went to a great party, man. It was bad. It was so awesome. It was so bad."
Hmm.
That's the way I spoke 35 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, so it's constantly evolving. It really is. I'm fascinated by this whole thing. So I'll see where we are in 20 years.
Yes.
You'll be 36 in 20 years. You'll have a
Yeah.
little baby at home, probably a 3 or a 4-year old,
Yeah. Yeah.
a little Brugnoni of your own.
That would be cool.
That would be
So
cool.
yeah.
I think
So
I think you'll make a great father. I
I
think you
think I
will.
will. Thank you though. Thank you for that.
I,
So you obviously like we spoke. You like Shakespeare a lot. So
I do.
would you take 5 headshots from a prime Mike Tyson, like a 25-year-old Mike Tyson, to bring back Shakespeare? If that's what you needed to
Well,
bring back.
I guess I would, but how would I know it's Shakespeare? My brain would be. I mean, I'd probably be left with some kind of brain impairment after that. The man supposedly had like the power of 3 men in each of his fists. Apparently, I mean, you don't remember this because you weren't alive, but I was alive during his prime. He Most of his fights ended within 2 minutes. He would just knock the guy out,
Yeah.
unconscious, like not to the floor, unconscious. Like what that man has in his fists is unlike anything we've seen before him. So would I take 5 to bring Shakespeare back? I would, but I wouldn't do it for me. I'd do it for the world because I would probably be in a coma in a hospital somewhere, right? But
Yeah.
again, the world would have Shakespeare again. So I'd take one for the team. What the heck?
Yes.
Why not?
I mean, but either way, like you wouldn't feel it. Like yeah, I think one
After
shot.
this, Brugnoni, after the second shot, I'd be on the floor drooling, talking to myself.
Yeah.
There probably wouldn't be a need for a third or a fourth or a fifth. But would I do it? Absolutely. To bring back the world's greatest writer, let's do it. I'm there. Sign me up.
Nice. So moving on from that, what's your favorite food? Because you said you can improve your diet. So if your diet
Yeah.
isn't that good, what's your favorite food?
Well, that's a hard one because I have a varied tastes in food. I don't know if I could pin it down, but my favorite type of general food. I love, of course, any Latin food. I grew up on that, being a Cuban American. Love Mexican food. Absolutely love Mexican food.
Mhm.
Love Italian food. Um, Not a big fan of seafood, although I do like it if it's fried because everything fried tastes good. You can fry a book
Yeah.
and it'll taste good. But if I had to like one favorite meal, there's a Cuban dish which my mother made quite often when I was growing up, although she didn't make it as often as I'd like because it's actually rather expensive. In English, it's called oxtail.
Oxtail.
In Spanish, it's called rabo encendido. It's literally the tail, the cow's tail, which they cut into pieces. But the way Cubans make it is, in my humble opinion, the most flavorful meat dish you can eat. And it's one of my favorites, probably my favorite. And I often joke that if I'm ever on death row, when you're on death row and you're going to be executed for a crime, they give you one last meal, right? And it could be anything you want in the world.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I often joke that if I'm ever on death row, that'll probably be my last meal. Number one, it's hard to find because they really only make it in Cuba and here in Miami because we have a lot of Cubans. But it's an expensive cut of meat because, as you can imagine, a cow only has one tail.
Mm-hmm.
So it costs a lot of money. It costs like, a good 16, $17, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And 80% of it is bone. I don't know if you've ever had a brugnoni, but if you haven't had it, um, grab the oldest person in your family who knows how to cook, your abuela or your abuelo, whoever knows how to cook in your family,
Mm-hmm.
and tell them that you want oxtail, also known as
Yes.
rabo encendido in Spanish. And if you like meat, if you're a meat eater,
Yeah.
that is it's extremely flavorful. It's just you pop it in your mouth and it's just heaven. So yeah, if I had to like eat only one thing for the rest of my life, that would probably be it.
So, I'm sharing my screen. Wait, I'll put it on. I'll put it real quick.
All right. Oh
Is
dear Lord.
this, is that it?
Ravens indeed. That's it. That's it right there. The fourth one from the right is that's exactly what it looks like when it's well cooked.
Yeah.
That's it. And
Looks good.
that's literally the cow's tail. It's called oxtail, but it's not the ox. It's the cow. But that's just what it's called. They sell it at Publix. They sell it everywhere you shop, Publix, Aldi, wherever you go. But it's expensive. That little piece right there, that plate will probably cost you about 16, $17, which is a lot.
Yeah, but it
But
looks good.
my God, you have no idea how flavorful that is.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I have no Cuban like family at all. Like everybody is,
Okay.
no, nobody's Cuban.
Okay. Where's your family from
Well,
originally?
it's like three countries.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You have,
Where are mom and dad from?
well, mom is from Venezuela.
Got it.
Dad's from Colombia.
Okay. Well, they still may make it.
Yeah.
If you've lived in the city long enough, your parents or your grandparents may still know how to make it.
Hmm.
But next time you're at a Cuban restaurant, on Sundays, they tend to make that the special of the day, right? So if
Mm,
you're ever at a Cuban restaurant on a Sunday, take a look at the specials, and if oxtail is an option, order it and think of me.
yes.
All right.
Well, I mean, I honestly, I don't really go to Cuban restaurants. I only went to one, and it's called like Areta. I don't know
La
if
Carreta, yeah, La
yeah,
Carreta is a well-known one, but you will. You're a young man, and I don't think you're going anywhere anytime soon.
yeah.
And so you will eventually end up at another Cuban restaurant at some point on a Sunday or a
Yeah.
Saturday, and
Mhm.
chances are that Rabo Encendido will be the special. I don't know why they only do it on the weekend. Well, I know why. It's expensive. That's why.
Yeah, yeah,
But what do you care? Mom and dad are paying, so go for it.
exactly.
Yeah, heck yeah.
So there's this conversation going on like a lot now. It's who will win between 100 men or one silverback gorilla.
Okay, what does that mean? Who or when? What does that mean? Explain.
Well, the conversation between a battle. It's like a battle in a field between 100 men versus one gorilla.
Who would win?
Yeah, who will
No,
win?
no, no. The gorilla's strong, but there's no way a gorilla can take on 100 men.
Twenty.
A gorilla has the force of about when angry. I mean, when angry,
Hmm. Yeah.
and he would be angry. There's 100 men coming at him
Hmm.
of about three and a half men. But 100 men, there's no way. The 100 men would tear most animals to shreds.
Yes.
Most animals. I can't think of any. Maybe a T Rex if we can bring one back uh, from the Stone Age. But no, a gorilla. Actually, about 6 men would take care of the gorilla. So that's a
Well,
silly argument.
well, a 6 members and one gorilla. Well, that's a little bit different. I mean, the gorilla might get tired, but I feel like the gorilla, for the first few men, I think it's gonna tear them down. The first few men.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're right. And it also depends on the men. I mean, are we talking about 5'3", 120 pounds? Or are we talking about, WWE wrestlers who are
Mm.
muscles from head to toe? So it depends on the men as well.
Yeah, yeah,
You know.
I agree. So, okay, so do you think I'm like a good student?
Excuse me. Yes, you are actually. You're quiet, as I said, and that's just your personality, and there's nothing wrong with that. But remember the word student, the core word in that word is studious or study. Um, and that you are. You produce good work when you want to. Sometimes you get a little lazy and you don't study for quizzes and things like that. But you do produce good work. You certainly have the potential to produce good work when you choose to. And you seem to do well on my tests. And you seem to pay attention really, really well. You pay attention exceedingly well, which is a good thing because, students being easily distracted by whatever's happening out the window or whatever the kid next to him is doing, that's a
Hmm.
big problem for teachers these days.
Yeah.
But you have really good focus. Every time I look up at you, you're looking back while I'm teaching and I'm lecturing. You're never distracted. So, as far as being a good student, a person who studies or is studious, yes, you absolutely
Yeah.
are.
Thank you. So, do you like consistently watch any sports?
I do. I'm a big Dolphin fan. I never miss a game. Um, and I do watch basketball, but not really during the season. I pay attention only when the Heat get. I do cheer only for the Heat. I don't cheer for anyone else. I'm a Miami boy, so I cheer for all the Miami teams. But for basketball and hockey, I only pay attention if they get into the playoffs. Like right now, I'm watching the Panthers because they're doing
Mhm.
well in the playoffs. In fact, I watched the game last night, and they won easily 6-1. The Dolphins, no. The Dolphins, I'm a fanatic of the Dolphins. So I watch them whether they're winning, losing, whether they're good or bad. I never miss a game on Sundays or Monday or whenever the game is. I was a huge fan growing up. I used to go to the practices when I was your age. They used to be open to the public.
Oh.
So I would go. Yeah, I would. The second I started driving when I was 17,
Hmm.
I would drive my happy behind over to St. Thomas University, which is where they used to practice. They don't practice there anymore, but they used to practice at the in the soccer field at St. Thomas University, and it was open to the public. So I would go and I'd sit there and I'd watch the players, and then I'd get the autographs and all that. It was fun.
Yeah.
When you're 17, you have that kind of time. I couldn't do it now, but back then I had that kind of time.
So, since you're like a huge fan of the Dolphins, if I were to like massively disrespect the Dolphins right now, would I get like a conduct grade like dropped?
No, no, we live in a free country. You can cheer for whomever you want. You can be a fan of any team. And part of the fun of sports is, you know, when you have friends who don't agree with the teams you cheer for, and you guys kind of sort of
Yeah.
mock each other and you make fun of each other. That's half the fun of sports.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love watching an important game with like three or four people who are cheering for the other team.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever something interesting happens on the screen, you're like, "I told you so," and we can mock each other, and that's half the fun. That's literally half the fun.
Yeah. Because
So go
when I
ahead,
yeah
disrespect away.
yeah because when I watch sports, I actually never cheered for like one Miami or Florida team. Like basketball, never. I don't watch baseball, but when I when I do, which is like very little or very rare, I never cheer for like the Florida team. I never cheer for any Florida team in any sport.
But were you born here?
Yeah, well, I was born here. I was
Okay, well,
born and
but
raised here.
is sports important to you at all?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Well,
which ones? Which ones?
not the sport I do. Some people don't have to call it a sport, but
Mm.
it's I mean, I can tell you if you want. It's called MMA. MMA, which is mixed martial arts.
Oh, I know that. Yeah, isn't that what Joe Rogan used to do or whatever?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah, yeah, I know
basically
MMA. It's like
yeah,
fighting with you. You can use your feet, right?
yeah,
And you can
combining everything, combining everything.
combining everything. It's kind of like karate meets boxing, right?
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
it.
you love it. But are you actively doing it, or it's just
Yeah,
you watch
I
it? You just
I
watch it.
no, I train it a lot.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful,
I
wonderful.
train
Great.
I train on Sundays, and then now I do like jujitsu, which is like
Nothing.
submissions and choke and that stuff, like choking
That's
and stuff.
awesome. That's absolutely awesome.
Uh-huh.
That's great. I mean, I would never have pinned you for an MMA fight because again, you're so quiet. I would never have guessed that. But I think that makes me really happy. The fact that you have something to look forward to every Sunday and you enjoy it. Plus, you get a little exercise, which never hurts.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. I'm sure your parents are not too thrilled because you're hitting people or getting hit,
Exactly.
but um, but if you enjoy it and you're careful and you do it responsibly, why not? Why not? Absolutely. Maybe a little. Maybe as you get a little older, you'll get into cheering for other sports like the Dolphins or the Heat or the
Yeah.
Marlins or whatever. Yeah, things change. Life comes in phases. Life comes in phases.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're going to be a whole different person in 20 years. You'll be
Yeah.
a better person because you'll be wiser, you'll have more experience, but you'll be a different person, completely different. And if you do in fact become a parent, that's
Hmm.
another huge change. You no longer live for yourself. You live for this little thing that your wife just gave birth to. In other words, your
Exactly.
life no longer belongs to just you. Now
Hmm.
you have another reason to get up in the morning, another reason to work hard, another reason to drive carefully. Your life changes in a matter of seconds. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So hang in there, hang in there. You might be cheering for the Dolphins in 20 years or for another team. You never know.
Yeah. Because yeah, actually, no, I do agree with that. And are you like best friends with any other teacher at our school?
I
Or just
am actually. I am. My oldest, dearest friend in the world is Mr. Escudero, who is new to the school. This is only his second year. He's a science teacher.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we are really old friends. We met in seventh grade, English class, interestingly
Mm,
enough. Yeah, I sat right in front of him and he sat right behind me. And, sometimes the people, because of the seating chart, sometimes those people become your closest friends. It was first period English, seventh grade. We were both 13 years old,
hmm.
and we've been best friends ever since. And I've been trying to get him to Terra for a few years. And when an opportunity came up last year because a teacher retired, I had him apply and he got the job and he's here and he absolutely loves it. And the kids, from what I hear, the kids love him because he's not only an excellent teacher, but he and I have similar personalities. We
Hmm.
make a lot of silly jokes. We don't take things too seriously. We both love what we do for a living.
Hmm.
You have to love what you do for a living. So yeah, he's great. But yeah, and I've also been very close friends with another English teacher. We've known each other for God, going on 20 years now. So yeah, so I have a couple of really close friends in this building.
Yeah. So you and Mr. Escuero, you guys have been like you guys still hang out with each other outside of school, or do you guys just like meet in the hallways or?
No, we're we're best friends. Yeah,
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
we travel together and we are in each other's lives, our most important moments. Yeah, absolutely. We took a trip last summer. We went on a cruise together. Yeah, really we're like brothers. He doesn't have a brother. He has a sister, and I was an only child, so we're kind of like brothers to each other. That's what a good friend is, right? I
Yeah,
mean, we were 13. We're 51. I'm about to turn 52, so we're going on almost 40 years of friendship.
that's great for you guys.
Hmm.
I'm also an only child, but
Ah,
yeah, most of my friends are actually have like siblings. Many of them.
yeah. Well, children are expensive, so a lot of families are now choosing to have one or two.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case 50, 60 years ago. Life was a little less expensive. Look, my mother was one of 15 children.
Ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot.
15, yeah. And if I'm sure if I don't know if your great grandparents are still alive, or even your grandparents,
Yeah.
I'm sure they come from families of 5 or 6 children.
Yeah, my grandma, she's still alive. My grandma, she's 90 and she's had 7 kids.
See,
Yeah,
yeah, my mother, 14 brothers and sisters. Can you imagine?
that's crazy.
Yeah, and that was before the internet, before television, before you could just hand a kid an iPad.
Yeah,
And every meal had to be made from scratch. You couldn't microwave things. Most people had no refrigerators, so you couldn't put things away for later. Can you
yeah,
imagine?
yeah. But I wonder like how do you like how do you deal with that without being like stressed to the max? That's
Well,
so much kids.
number one, they didn't know any better, right? That was just
Mhm.
the life they led. Number one. Number two, at that time, we're talking about the 30s and the 40s. This when my mother was born in the late 30s.
Yeah,
Um, Mothers always stayed home. Only men worked for the most part. So the mother gave birth to the children and then obviously raised the children, and she would get help from the other children, right? So the oldest child would take care of the next one, and then that one would take care of
Mhm.
the next one. So it was kind of like this little factory of
Yeah.
children and the mother helping each other raise all the others. It was fascinating. I
Right.
don't know if that could happen today because children are really expensive. Children are absolutely wonderful. My God, are they wonderful? But they're expensive. Children cost a lot of money. To raise a child today costs a lot of money, a lot more than 50, 60 years ago. And mothers work now.
Yes,
So,
that's true.
it's hard to have three, four, five children at home at the same time, to have six or seven children under the age of seven. I mean, can you
Yeah,
imagine? So,
that's
yeah, so
crazy.
families are getting smaller. Families are getting smaller, but we're living longer. We're living healthier.
Hmm.
Back then, a lot of mothers gave birth, children would die, or the mother would die.
Yeah.
It was a lot of mothers gave birth at home. They wouldn't even bother to drive to the hospital. So you gave birth on your own bed. It was a
Tell me more.
different time. It was a different time, different time. But how did they do it? Well, I just don't think they. I just don't. I don't think they knew any better. It's just the world they lived in. You had a lot of children back then.
Yeah, but and the thing that you said about like a kid growing up and then like helping the other kid or taking care of the other kid, I mean that's a good system. I mean that's a pretty helpful system. Like
That's
the
how it was. That's how it was. That's how my aunts, my
yeah.
mother's sisters and brothers. That's how it worked. My mother was almost basically. She was basically raised by my uncle, who was her older brother.
Yeah.
He was like a father to her, even though they were brother and sister. He was 7 years older. When you're seven, he's 14. When you're a 14-year-old can kind of take care of a 7-year-old, right? So
Hmm.
that's what happened in huge families all
Yes.
over the world, all over the world, not just in Cuba, but all over the world.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you know this word, but if you do, what's the definition of mellow? Like
Mellow?
yeah, mellow.
Well, someone who is uh, calm, quiet, uh,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, someone who takes things easily, doesn't get overly affected by the world around them, right? Someone who is pleasant, soft, I would say.
Hmm.
Um, that's what mellow means to me anyway, right?
So do you consider yourself like a mellow person?
I I guess it depends on what the activity is, right? I don't consider
Mhm.
myself a mellow teacher. I tend to be loud and I tend to be um active, and I repeat myself a lot because when you're dealing with teenagers, you have to repeat yourself a lot. So I know I would not use the word mellow to describe myself. Now in my personal life, in my private life, I can be mellow, absolutely. I
Hmm.
When I go to meetings, for example, like sometimes they have meetings uh in the building where I live to discuss what's happening in the neighborhood. I don't speak up unless if I say two words, it's too many. I tend to stay quiet. But no, in the classroom, I wouldn't say I'm mellow. Personal
Hmm.
life, at times, depending on the situation.
Yeah. You may I don't know if you think I'm like a pretty mellow, but I'm pretty quiet and calm in class. But to be honest, I'll be honest with you. Outside of school or outside of class, I'm not too mellow. Like I'm kind of like how do I say it? I'm a little more like explosive. Like I
Are
do
you?
get like a burst of energy sometimes to just
Well,
talk
that's
and
that's
talk.
wonderful. That's wonderful. You
Yeah.
don't have to apologize, son. You are living your life with your personality and your outlook on the world, and that is the way you view the world and the way you choose to behave.
Mhm.
And it's absolutely wonderful. You are highly respectful and you're quiet and you're attentive. I wish I had 100 more students like you. So, no, absolutely. But if you're at home, when you feel more free to be a little louder, a little more active, that's awesome too. Absolutely. That's awesome. That's I'm happy about that. Yeah, and you can't be too mellow and be an MMA fighter, right?
Yeah.
Right. You're gonna go into a ring and kick some butt, and hit someone across the head and with your feet, and you really can't be too mellow. You have to have a little violence in you, right? At
Yeah. That's
least.
true.
There you
That's
go.
true.
Well, there you go. Good.
So, obviously, since you're an English teacher, and I think everybody knows this, you read a lot. But how many books do you read a year? Like estimate if you can.
Hmm. Well, I don't know if I could even get. I don't know. Let me see. I mean, I guess I'd have to do a quick math. I don't read as much as I would like to because I spend so much time grading, obviously. So I do a lot of reading for my own work.
Mm,
But I don't know. Let me give you a rough estimate. It's got to be around 20, maybe 20 to 25 books a year. I try maybe one, two or so a month, give or take, is what I try to get through. I'm also cheap. I don't like to spend money on books, so I go to the library a lot because they're free.
yeah.
Or I borrow books from like our school. We have a book room. I borrow. I take it home
Oh yeah.
and I put it back. In fact, I did that last 2 months ago. I borrowed a novel that I read when I was your age, a little older than you are now, and I hadn't
Mhm.
read it in years, and I forgot every. So I reread it because I found it in the book room. It's a short novel, so I read it in a couple days.
And so do you just read like obviously when you're home or even like after school, but do you read like randomly like when it's like just
I
when you
read
feel
in
like
bed.
all
I
the
read
time?
in bed. I try to read before going to sleep. I bought myself a Kindle a few years ago because my eyesight is terrible,
Hmm.
and most books, the print is rather small.
Yeah.
But the Kindle, you can make the font as big as you want, right? So I read in bed, and it makes me a little sleepy, which is good because I'm trying to go to bed. But I find reading anywhere outside of bed distracting. Like if I read I have an office at home. If I read in the office, I'm gonna want to go on the computer, and and this is what always happens, right? I'm reading a book, and the book mentions either an event or a person I know little about. So what
Mm,
do? I put the book down and I start Googling the person, or
yeah.
I Google the event, and then I spend 20 minutes reading about that event.
Yeah.
So I try to avoid that because otherwise it disrupts the story. I want to get into the story that I'm
Yeah.
reading.
But that's good that you do that because I mean, yeah,
It
like
is, it is, except that it takes a little. It makes it last longer. It takes me a little longer than it should to read a novel because I stop to research. Because my favorite genre, or one of my favorite genres to read, are historical novels, or
mm,
historical thrillers. I love books that are like have there's a thriller element to it, murder or whatever,
yeah.
but based on a real event that actually happened in history. Right. So I'm reading and it mentions actual places that actually exist. So I stop and I Google and I look at the photographs of the event I just read about. So yeah, it can take, but if I do that, if I read in bed, I'm not going to get up from bed at like 9:30 at night to go Google something.
Hmm.
So I have a better chance of getting through the story, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so the books that you give out to like your students, like obviously in this fourth quarter you didn't do it, but in the first three quarters you gave out one book that we have to read at home, and they give us like a big fat test.
Yeah.
Have
Read.
those books like always been the same for like all these years that I've been teaching, or have they
Oh,
like
no,
changed?
no, 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 absolutely not. No, it depends on the age, right? So like when I teach 11th grade, which is rarely, but I used to teach 11th grade, I have three different books that I assign, right?
Yeah.
10th grade, I try to choose books that are teen centric, meaning that teenagers are in the heart of the book, right? The Fault in Our Stars deals with two 17 and 18-year-olds. Um, Perks of Being a Wallflower, and all these books that are about teenagers, because I feel that you guys will relate to the story better if the characters are near your age. Not necessarily exactly your age, but near your age,
Yeah.
and speak like you do and see the world as you do. Plus, I like the stories. I would never assign a book if I didn't like the story that you're going to read.
Yeah.
But no, in answering what you asked, no, I changed the book depending on the age group
Hmm.
or the age range. Like for 11th grade, I tend to assign books that are a little more classic. I tend to do things like the books like The Great Gatsby.
Oh, okay.
I might one year I even assigned what is considered one of the greatest plays in American history, Death of a Salesman. So instead of a book, they had to read a play. Um, you know,
Oh, okay. Okay.
so yeah. So no, I change it, and sometimes even for 10th grade, I change the book. Sometimes I assign. Like 2 years ago, I assigned The Great Gatsby
Hmm.
because I felt, I don't know, just that year I felt like that's the book that that group would appreciate.
Yeah.
A couple of years before that, I assigned The Princess Bride, which is one of my favorite books ever.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've seen the movie, but
No.
the book is awesome. The movie is awesome too, but the book is great. Yeah. So again, it depends. Sometimes I change it just so I don't get bored of teaching or talking about a book.
Yeah. I
Because
yeah. So there's all the books that you have assigned so far. I've liked them. I've liked them. Now, my favorite one, you didn't assign for us to read it. We read it in class, but it's Night.
Night, of course, the
Yeah.
classic memoir about the
Yeah.
Holocaust. Yes, of
It
course. Yeah.
obviously it's not like a fun story. Like it's not like a fun story. It's tragic, but I'm saying it has a good emotion to it. Like a good emotion. Like it's
Well, yeah,
you know.
it deals with one of, if not the darkest event in world history, the Holocaust, as you know. And Eli Wiesel, the author, does a magnificent job of capturing the tragedy, the horror of that event, and he did
Yeah.
it through his own eyes because he lived it. He wasn't just writing about it as someone who researched it. No, he actually lived it. And he happens to be a magnificent writer, which never hurts when you're a great writer as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I didn't like the idea of some of my students graduating high school without reading what is considered the greatest book about the Holocaust ever written. I don't. I mean, a couple of you had already read it, but not enough of you had read it. So I didn't mind reading it again.
Yeah.
Because now you can say you read that book, and 25 years from now, 30 years from now, you'll have the 14 or the 15-year-old girl or the 15-year-old boy also reading it because that book is not going anywhere. And you're going to be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I read it when I was 15. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, oh my god." And you can discuss it with your daughter or your son.
Yeah.
And that way we keep the Holocaust, the memory of that horrible event alive. Because the only way to make sure an event like that never happens again is by teaching the horror of it every
Yeah.
year. Every year we have to teach that so it never, ever, ever, ever happens again.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand. And I actually bought my own copy to the book.
Oh, that's awesome, Brugnoni. I always tell my students, you guys need to, as you get older, you need to be growing and expanding your personal library. I have a huge library at home, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
I have a couple of hundred books,
Hmm.
but I didn't buy them last week. I've been slowly adding to my personal library since I was your age. So I'm glad if you enjoy a book, even if you never read it again, buy it, have it in your office or in your room,
Yeah.
and you can be proud every time you walk by that book. You can say to yourself, I read that book, I understood, I jumped and delved into that world, because a book is a world that you are taking a peek into. That's what a book
Hmm.
is. You're sneaking your head into a world that you've never ever visited before, which is why reading is such a wonderful activity. It exposes you to worlds, people, experiences that you have never experienced before. But you can be
Yeah.
proud of the fact that you have visited that world, even if it was just through your imagination.
Yeah. And um, some people, especially like now, people find it hard to like read books because like the time it takes, and sometimes people find it boring. But I think you do a good job of really like explaining a book or making it simple, like explaining
I
it in
try.
simple
I
terms.
try. I try. I know it's not easy. Your generation is interesting, and this is not your fault. It's just the world you were born into. But by the time you guys reach my class, by the time you're 15 or 16, you've already had a cell phone for what, 3, 4 years?
Yeah.
And the problem with that is, as you know, what does one do on a cell phone? You go from image to image, you like one, you comment on the other, you go to the next one, the next. So you have indirectly trained your brain to not care about anything for more than 2 seconds.
Yeah.
See the problem?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I plop this book in front of you, like Macbeth, a 2.5 hour play written in a version of English that no one ever uses anymore.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, you want to do what you do with your TikToks or your Instagram posts. You want to move to the next one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not how literature works. Literature takes time and it takes focus. So yeah, your generation struggles more than your parents did, and certainly more than your grandparents did. Again, not your fault. This is the world you were born into. And if I were 16 today, I too would struggle with long form literature because my brain would have been trained to go to the next thing after 2 seconds. So yeah, it's like pulling teeth sometimes, Brugnoni, but
Yeah,
that's why I try to make it as interesting as possible. I make the stupid dad jokes that I make in class all the time. I repeat myself a lot. I give you guys little um, recaps of what we read the class before to make sure you remember.
yeah,
I do everything. I stop every 2 seconds to explain what just happened,
yeah,
even though you just read it. I make sure you understood it, and before moving on. And that's the only way. You can't just hit play on the CD or play on the audio and sit back. You can't. You have to be an active teacher because
yeah,
there's certain works of literature that are just complicated. They're complicated. And if the teacher's not active, the students will lose interest. But if the teacher cares, I think the students will try a little harder to understand, to focus. If they know, Mr. Gonzalez, Mrs. Hernandez, or whatever, whoever your teacher is,
yeah,
she really seems to care about this. So let me give it a shot. Let me give it a little more focus. Let me pay attention a little better,
yeah,
just to make him happy because I like him as a teacher and I'm going to try, even though Macbeth is confusing and Macbeth is taking forever. Let's give it a try. What the heck? Maybe I'll enjoy it. And most of the time, when you give literature, great literature, a shot, most of the time, you will enjoy. You find that you actually enjoy it because great literature is great for a reason, right?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
and,
great.
and you do a good job with the recaps. And something that I'm not like the biggest fan of because I have like sometimes I do feel these the PAQs. Um,
Yeah, the PAQs.
yeah, but sometimes I kind of like it can be an easy question, but I kind of overthink it. I kind of I'm like oh wait, was it this or was it this?
Yeah. Well, for those of you who may not know, who might be listening to this later, PAQ stands for Pay Attention Quiz. It's a little quiz that I give sometimes, and it's only 2 questions. So, and it can only be about whatever happened the class before, whatever was read the class before, whatever I taught, or whatever I said the class before. And it's just to confirm whether or not the student paid attention.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the title, Pay Attention Quizzes. Most students pass. It's got like an 80%, 85% passing rate.
Yeah,
Most, because I don't really ask anything difficult. I think you would agree that my questions are not difficult and they're not meant to like trap the student. I want you to get A's because it means you paid attention,
yeah, exactly.
right? I want when I get a lot of A's, it means, oh, I did something right. They paid attention and I taught that lesson well, right?
Yeah. Um, and I said this like way like in the early podcast in like the first 10 minutes. So I think you're a teacher that does like the best English teacher that does like the best job at like really putting like information in your students' brains because when we're reading a book after you finish Macbeth, you may just do like an assignment where we have to like write like a poem like about like something about Macbeth and also the memes that we just did.
Yeah.
So you engage us into it, which is
Well,
which is good.
remember, teachers give assignments not to torture you. That we give assignments to confirm that whatever we taught was learned, right? So
Mhm.
we read Macbeth, we analyze Macbeth, we understand Macbeth, but I need to make sure. So I give you an assignment where you have to create memes and then explain why each of those moments is important to the play. And you can only explain why that moment where little Fleance escapes is important to the play if you understood the play. So that confirms to me, oh, Brugnoni understood that Fleance escaping when Macbeth tries to have him murdered is a threat to Macbeth because of the witch's prophecy that Banquo's sons will be the future kings of Scotland.
Yeah.
You will only you can only confirm that to me by writing that under the meme, and that tells me, oh, I taught that well.
Hmm.
My students got it. And if my students got it, then I did my job because my job every teacher's job is to transfer information from our brains to yours. That's why we're here, to
Yeah.
transfer knowledge from my brain to yours. And if
Yeah.
you get it, and I know you get it because of the assignment that I read that you wrote in your own words, then I've done my job and you've
Hmm.
done yours. Your job is to learn, mine is to teach. We've both done our jobs.
The meme activity was very fun. I mean, my memes were like a little corny to be honest, but I think that's like the point.
Oh, they were all corny. All of them were corny. But that's the whole point. I told you one of the ways I graded is, does this make me giggle?
Hmm.
Yeah, they weren't supposed to be serious. What
Yes.
is supposed to be serious is the little paragraph I require underneath. But the
Yeah.
actual meme, you're supposed to make me giggle. And a lot of them did. A lot of them were really funny, like really funny. And they were great. I had a great time grading that. Great time.
Yeah. I actually got an A on it. So that's
Good.
pretty
I don't
cool.
remember what you earned, but it's, if you say you got an A, I believe you. It's probably made me giggle. Yeah, which is great.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the next question is the last question.
Got it. What is it?
Okay. So this is like a little bit of it's not a weird question, but it kind of is. It depends how you look at it. Is going bald the greatest thing for a man? It has to be one
Well,
of the best things for a man. Is going bald.
going bald,
Yeah.
like losing your hair.
Like, well, if you shave your hair, like you
Oh,
decide to like. I mean, I
okay.
think
So you're asking two different things. You're asking if going bald is the greatest thing for. That's going bald. That means you're losing your hair because of your, the DNA in your body means you're going to lose your hair. Um, I don't know if that's a great thing because everybody likes to be liked. Everybody likes to be liked, right? So,
Mhm.
and hair is one of those things that is often associated with masculinity. A man with hair is often perceived as more masculine. But you're asking if choosing to shave your head
Yeah, yeah,
and give the impression of being bald is the greatest thing. So those are two different things: going bald and choosing to shave one's head.
yeah. So what I meant
I don't know
is
if that's the
choosing.
greatest thing, but I started losing my hair when I was like 30. Not a lot, but enough where it
Mhm.
bothered me. So I chose to shave my head right around 2006, around the time, a little before you were born.
Yeah,
And I've been shaving it ever since. And now it's just easy. Like I probably shave my head even if I had a full head of hair because Miami's a hot city and hair is hot.
yeah,
But no, I don't know. A lot of men like really tortured, like tormented by the when they start losing their hair. Luckily, and let me tell you why we're lucky, we live in a world and a time where shaving one's head is considered a viable option. Like a lot of men like that look.
yeah.
A lot of women prefer that look on men.
Hmm.
So sometimes men who have full heads of hair will shave their head, even if they have a full head of hair, because they like the look. 50 years ago, had you shaved your head, people would have looked at you like you had three heads on your shoulder. You would have looked extremely different and unlike anyone else. And maybe you would have even been treated differently. But today, you even see bald women. There's a lot of famous bald women out there. It's just a look that is appreciated and accepted and understood.
Yeah, but I mean, I was well. It's obviously not the greatest thing, but I was looking at it like it's almost like some freedom, kind of like it's a little bit of a relief. Don't have to deal with like the hair routine and all that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is a lot of freedom, but I always tell my students, especially young men your age, like
Hmm.
enjoy. Women don't lose their hair. I mean, there are a few women who have a condition, a special condition that makes them lose their hair, but on average, women don't have that gene that
Yeah.
men have that make them go bald. So I always tell my students, enjoy your hair for as long as you have it, because most men start losing some hair by the age of 30. It happened to me. It happened to almost every man I know. So what I'm saying is enjoy it. You have the rest of your life to be bald or to shave your head later. Enjoy the heck out of it now. Cut it, trim it, style it, color it, whatever you like doing with your hair. Do it now because you may not have it later. Although I have a feeling by the time you get to be 30, 35 ish,
Hmm.
there'll probably be a cure for baldness because they've been working at it really, really hard.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
whatever company invents it or discovers it is going to make gazillions of dollars. I mean, gazillions of dollars. So
Yeah.
I think by the time you reach your 30s, even if you start losing your hair, your generation will have an option to reverse it. Maybe I'm wrong, but who knows?
I believe that there's gonna be an option in the
I'll
future.
be too old to enjoy it, Brunoni, but you go ahead and enjoy it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So yeah, that's it for the podcast.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored. I am flattered that you would have me. I hope it was enjoyable to you and your listeners. And I'll see you in class next time. When do I see you again? Monday? Tomorrow? I can't remember what
Yeah,
tomorrow.
tomorrow. See me tomorrow.
Tomorrow. All right. Awesome, son. Well, thank you for having me again. I had a really good time.
Yes. Thank you guys for watching. This was episode 9 with Mr. Dabalsa. Thank you guys. Subscribe and like. Have a good day.
Everybody, take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.